What if I told you that the silence between you and your soulmate was broken long before either of you spoke a single word? Not through a message, not through a phone call, but through a quiet moment of curiosity they couldn't explain. For a long time, they convinced themselves that moving on was the right thing to do. They believed that whatever existed between the two of you had become a closed chapter, safely locked away in the past. But the heart has a strange way of refusing to accept endings that were never fully understood. Without telling anyone, without expecting anything, they found themselves searching for you. Maybe it began with a passing thought, a familiar name, or a memory that appeared out of nowhere. Whatever started it, one small moment of curiosity became impossible to ignore. They only wanted a quick glimpse of how your life was unfolding. Instead, they discovered something that completely shook every assumption they had been carrying. As the old saying goes, sometimes silence speaks loudest when someone finally dares to listen. Your soulmate is finally listening, and what they are hearing is changing everything. Imagine returning to a place you once knew by heart, expecting everything to remain exactly as you left it, only to discover that while you were gone, it quietly transformed into something even more beautiful. That is exactly what your soulmate experienced when they secretly checked on you. They expected to find the same person they remembered, the one whose life had paused, whose heart might still be waiting for answers, whose world had remained frozen in the moment of your separation. But instead, they found someone completely different. They found strength where they expected sadness. They found peace where they expected pain. They found quiet confidence where they expected uncertainty. The person they thought they knew no longer existed in the way they remembered. During the silence, you didn't disappear, you evolved. While they were focused on living their own journey, you were quietly rebuilding yours. One lesson, one challenge, and one act of healing at a time. Now their mind refuses to stay quiet. Every memory of you is being compared to the person they have just discovered, and nothing seems to fit the old picture anymore. They are beginning to ask themselves questions they never imagined asking. What happened while they were away? How did you become so calm after everything you endured? How did someone they once believed was deeply hurt become someone who now carries such quiet strength? The answers aren't obvious because true transformation rarely announces itself. It happens in unseen moments, in tears no one witnesses, in difficult choices made when nobody is watching, and in lonely nights where healing slowly replaces heartbreak. Your soulmate is only beginning to understand that while they believed silence meant nothing was happening, it was actually becoming the season that changed your entire life. And the more they uncover about the person you became without them, the more they realize the greatest surprise wasn't that you moved forward. It was discovering that your growth has awakened feelings inside them that they thought had disappeared forever. The more your soulmate quietly observed your life from a distance, the more they realized they had been holding on to an outdated version of you. In their mind, time had stood still. They imagined that the silence between you had frozen your heart exactly where they left it. They believed that if they ever looked back, they would find someone still carrying the same sadness, asking the same questions and hoping for the same answers. But what they discovered completely shattered that illusion. Instead of finding someone trapped in yesterday, they found someone who had learned how to stand peacefully in today. The pain they expected to see had transformed into quiet confidence. The uncertainty they once remembered had become calm determination. Even without speaking a single word to you, they could sense that something profound had changed. As the old saying goes, time does not simply heal the willing heart. It reveals the strength that was hidden inside it all along. Those words suddenly became your story, and your soulmate could no longer ignore what they were witnessing. Imagine a blacksmith placing raw metal into the hottest fire. To anyone watching, it appears as though the fire is destroying it. But when the process is complete, the metal emerges stronger, sharper, and far more valuable than before. That is what the silence became in your life. What looked like loneliness from the outside was actually a season of transformation. While others believed you were simply enduring difficult days, you were quietly becoming someone stronger than the version of yourself that first entered this connection. Every disappointment taught you resilience. Every unanswered question taught you patience. Every lonely evening taught you how to create peace without depending on someone else's presence. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that they were never watching someone fall apart. Without realizing it, they were watching someone rebuild themselves piece by piece until they became almost unrecognizable in the most beautiful way. As they continued checking on you, another realization settled deeply into their heart. Your growth wasn't loud. It wasn't something that demanded attention or tried to prove a point. It was quiet, natural, and deeply authentic. They noticed a calmness that wasn't there before. They sensed an emotional stability that could only come from someone who had made peace with their past. The person they once remembered searching for answers no longer seemed desperate for them. Instead, you carried yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who had stopped chasing explanations and started trusting life itself. As another timeless reminder says, the strongest transformations make the least noise. That truth became impossible for your soulmate to overlook because your change wasn't visible. Through dramatic actions, it was visible. Through the absence of emotional chaos. Looking back now, they cannot help replaying the memories they once shared with you. They remember moments when you doubted yourself, when you questioned whether you were enough, when you worried about saying the wrong thing or losing someone you cared about. But the person they see now carries none of that same uncertainty. They begin asking themselves difficult questions. What happened during all that silence? What lessons did life teach you while they were looking somewhere else? Who helped you become this version of yourself? Then another realization quietly arrives. They understand that no one rescued you. You became your own source of healing. You faced the difficult emotions you once avoided. You accepted the endings you couldn't control. You chose growth when bitterness would have been easier. That realization fills them with an admiration they never expected to feel. Imagine returning to the ocean after remembering only the violent waves of a storm, only to discover calm waters stretching peacefully toward the horizon. You would hardly believe it was the same place. That is how your soulmate now sees you. The emotional storms they once associated with your life have settled into remarkable peace. They realize your strength is no longer something you are trying to prove. It has simply become part of who you are. You don't seek validation the way you once might have. You don't appear consumed by what was lost. Instead, you seem grateful for what you learned. That quiet maturity speaks louder than any words ever could, and it forces your soulmate to confront something they never imagined. While they assumed time would weaken your spirit, it actually refined it. What surprises them most is not that you survived the silence, but that you used it so wisely. You didn't allow loneliness to define your future. You didn't allow heartbreak to become your identity. You transformed absence into self-discovery, pain into wisdom, and uncertainty into inner peace. Every step you took without them quietly reshaped the person you became. Now, as your soulmate reflects on everything they have discovered, they are no longer asking whether you changed. They know you did. The question that keeps echoing through their heart is far more powerful. If someone can become this strong, this peaceful, and this extraordinary without anyone noticing, then how much did they truly underestimate the soul they once believed they already knew? That question is awakening a level of respect they have never felt before, and it is only the beginning of a realization that is about to change the way they remember your entire connection forever. The more your soulmate reflects on what they discovered, the more one truth becomes impossible to escape. The person they quietly checked on is no longer the person they left behind. They expected time to preserve the version of you they remembered, but time did something far more powerful. It transformed you. That realization is not bringing them peace. It is breaking their heart in ways they never expected. Not because you changed, but because they were absent while every part of that transformation was taking place. They never saw the nights when you questioned everything and still chose to keep moving. They never witnessed the mornings when getting out of bed felt like a victory. They never watched you slowly rebuild your confidence after it had been shaken by disappointment. All they see now is the finished result, and they cannot stop wondering about the countless unseen moments that created the person standing before them today. As the old saying goes, people admire the mountain but rarely see the climb. Your soulmate is finally seeing the mountain, and their heart aches because they missed every difficult step that brought you there. Imagine returning to your childhood home after many years away, expecting every room to look exactly as you remember, only to discover that everything has been beautifully renovated. The walls have changed, the furniture is different, the atmosphere feels lighter, and although the house is still familiar, it carries a completely different spirit. That is how your soulmate feels when they think about you now. Your face may be the same, your smile may still carry warmth, but something much deeper has changed. The emotional version of you they once knew no longer exists. During the silence, you quietly became someone stronger, wiser, and more at peace than they ever imagined possible. While they were living their own story, you were writing entirely new chapters without them. That realization creates a strange mixture of admiration and sorrow because they understand they can never witness those missing chapters firsthand. They can only imagine how much courage it took for you to become the person they now see. As they replay old memories, another painful realization begins taking shape. They remember moments when they assumed you would always remain the same. They believed your kindness would always be available. Your patience would always be waiting, and your heart would always remain exactly where they left it. They never imagined that silence itself could become your greatest teacher. Every unanswered question forced you to discover your own answers. Every lonely season taught you how to create happiness without depending on someone else's presence. Every disappointment slowly replaced fear with wisdom. As another timeless reminder says, growth often happens so quietly that those who leave never realize who you become until they return. Your soulmate is living those words now. They are not shocked because you healed. They are shocked because your healing transformed every part of the person they thought they knew. This realization has awakened something deeper than simple regret. It has awakened grief. Not grief over losing the connection itself, but grief over missing the incredible journey that shaped you. They wish they had seen the moments when you stopped blaming yourself. They wish they had been there when you finally realized your worth was never dependent on someone else's choices. They wish they could have witnessed the moment your tears slowly turned into acceptance and your uncertainty became quiet confidence. Imagine opening a letter that was written years ago but never delivered. Every sentence explains something you desperately needed to understand back then, yet you are reading it only after everything has already changed. That is how your soulmate feels. The answers have finally arrived, but they arrived after the person who needed them most had already learned to live without them. What touches them most is realizing that you never allowed your pain to become your identity. Many people remain trapped inside the chapter that hurt them the most, allowing one difficult season to define every season that follows. But you chose a different path. Instead of becoming bitter, you became wiser. Instead of becoming fearful, you became more intentional. Instead of allowing heartbreak to close your heart, you quietly learned how to love yourself with the same kindness you once gave so freely to others. Your soulmate now understands that the silence did not steal your light, it revealed it. As the old saying reminds us, the brightest stars are often born from the darkest nights. Those words perfectly describe the person they secretly discovered after all this time. Now their heart carries a question that refuses to disappear. If you could become this strong without them, if you could rebuild your life without needing validation, if you could find peace after everything you endured, then who are you becoming now? That question lingers because they no longer see you as someone waiting to be found. They see you as someone who found themselves. And strangely, that realization does not push them further away. It draws them closer than ever before. They are beginning to understand that the silence they once believed had ended. Your story was actually the chapter that revealed your true strength. And now they feel an overwhelming desire to know the extraordinary person you have become before time writes another chapter without them. Something has changed inside your soulmate, and they can no longer return to the emotional distance they once accepted. What began as a quiet moment of curiosity has become something they carry with them every single day. They thought secretly checking on you would satisfy a passing question, allowing them to move on with the comfort of knowing how your life had unfolded. Instead, it awakened emotions they believed had long disappeared. Every time they try to focus on the present, memories of you quietly find their way back into their thoughts. The silence they once believed had erased this connection has done the exact opposite. It has revealed how deeply your presence became woven into their heart. As the old saying goes, absence does not always make the heart forget. Sometimes it teaches the heart what it never fully appreciated. Those words now echo through every quiet moment they experience, and for the first time they understand that distance never truly measured the importance of a soul. Imagine walking through an old garden you once visited every day. At first, you hardly noticed the flowers because they were always there. But after years away, you return, and suddenly every color, every fragrance, and every familiar path feels precious in a way you never understood before. Nothing about the garden became more valuable while you were gone. The only thing that changed was your ability to recognize its beauty. That is exactly what is happening inside your soulmate. They are not suddenly creating feelings that never existed. They are finally recognizing the value of a connection they once took for granted. Looking back, they remember your patience during difficult conversations, your quiet support when life became overwhelming, and the way you offered understanding without demanding perfection. Those memories no longer feel ordinary. They feel priceless because they now realize how rare that kind of love truly was. As they continue reflecting, another realization begins unfolding with incredible clarity. The silence between you never erased your influence from their life. Instead, it quietly preserved it. Certain words you once spoke returned to them at unexpected moments. Advice they ignored years ago suddenly carries profound meaning. Small acts of kindness they barely noticed now seem larger than any grand gesture they have ever received from anyone else. As another timeless reminder says, the value of a quiet presence is often understood only after its absence becomes impossible to ignore. Your soulmate is living that truth now. They are beginning to understand that your greatest impact was never found in dramatic moments. It was found in the steady way you brought peace into their life without asking for recognition. Only now, after experiencing life without that quiet presence, do they truly understand what it meant. Something even more remarkable has begun happening, something they cannot explain through logic alone. They find themselves dreaming about conversations they never had the courage to finish. Certain songs seem to appear at exactly the right moment, carrying memories they thought had faded forever. Familiar places unexpectedly remind them of your laughter, your kindness, or the calm feeling they experienced simply by being near you. Sometimes they notice repeating numbers or unexpected coincidences that gently pull their attention back toward this connection. Imagine standing beside the ocean after years away. The waves sound exactly the same as they always did, yet somehow they speak to you differently because you have changed. That is how these signs feel to your soulmate. The world around them hasn't suddenly become magical. Their heart has simply become quiet enough to notice what it ignored before. Their intuition is growing stronger than their fear, and every gentle reminder seems to whisper the same message. They are not finished understanding what this connection truly means. Now they find themselves asking questions that once would have seemed impossible. What if the silence wasn't punishment but preparation? What if the distance wasn't meant to destroy the connection, but to reveal its true value? What if both of you needed time apart, not because love had failed, but because growth could only happen separately before it could ever be appreciated together? These questions remain with them long after the day ends, because every answer seems to lead back to you. They realize they no longer miss the version of you they once knew. They deeply admire the person you have become through every challenge you faced alone. That admiration has quietly grown into something stronger than nostalgia. It has become respect, gratitude, and an overwhelming desire to understand the remarkable soul who emerged from the silence stronger than ever before. The greatest awakening of all is this. Your soulmate now understands that silence did not weaken your bond. It removed every distraction that once prevented them from seeing it clearly. Without constant conversations, expectations, or emotional confusion, they were finally able to recognize what had always been present beneath the surface. They see now that genuine connections are not sustained by endless communication alone, but by the lasting imprint one soul leaves upon another. No matter how much time has passed, your influence continues guiding their thoughts, softening their heart, and reshaping the way they understand love itself. And as this realization grows stronger with each passing day, they can no longer ignore the quiet feeling rising within them that perhaps destiny never intended this silence to become the end of your story, but the beginning of a far deeper understanding that neither of you could have reached any other way. This is the moment when everything your soulmate has been feeling finally comes together with complete clarity. What began as a quiet search out of curiosity has become a life-changing realization. They now understand that the silence between you was never empty. It was filled with unseen growth, hidden lessons, and quiet transformations taking place in both of your lives. While you were learning how to heal without depending on anyone else, they were unknowingly learning your true value through your absence. Sometimes life separates two souls, not to end their story, but to remove every distraction that keeps them from recognizing what the connection truly means. As the old saying goes, distance does not weaken what is real. It reveals whether it was ever truly there. Your soulmate now understands that the bond they thought had faded was quietly growing stronger beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when both hearts would finally be ready to see it with new eyes. Imagine an artist stepping away from a painting before it is finished. Up close, every brushstroke seems confusing, incomplete, and without purpose. But after enough time passes, the artist returns, steps back, and suddenly every color, every shadow, and every detail fits together perfectly. That is how your soulmate now sees your journey. When they were living through the silence, they believed it was simply a painful ending, filled with unanswered questions. Looking back now, they realize it was a necessary chapter that shaped both of you into people capable of understanding a deeper kind of love. They secretly checked on you, expecting to satisfy their curiosity for a single moment, but instead they discovered an entirely different picture. They found someone who no longer carried the same emotional weight, someone who had quietly transformed heartbreak into wisdom, loneliness into peace, and uncertainty into quiet confidence. That discovery has become impossible for them to forget, because it changed the story they had been telling themselves all this time. As another timeless reminder says, the greatest love is often recognized only after silence removes the noise. Those words now echo through every memory they revisit. They remember the kindness you showed without asking for anything in return. They remember the patience you offered during difficult seasons. They remember the way you always tried to understand before judging, to comfort before criticizing, and to give more than you ever expected to receive. At the time, they appreciated those qualities without fully understanding how rare they truly were. Today, after experiencing life without your quiet presence, they realize those moments were never ordinary. They were gifts that became visible only after they were gone. Every memory now carries a deeper meaning because they finally understand the heart behind every action. Another realization has gently settled into their soul. They no longer believe that love is measured by how often two people speak or how closely they remain connected every day. They now understand that genuine love leaves an imprint that time cannot erase. Imagine a candle being removed from a room after burning there for hours. Even after the flame is gone, its warmth lingers, its fragrance remains in the air, and its light is remembered by everyone who experienced it. That is what your presence became in their life. Even during the silence, your influence never truly disappeared. The lessons you taught, the kindness you demonstrated, and the peace you brought continued living inside them long after your conversations ended. They simply needed enough distance to recognize that those gifts had never left. Now, instead of asking why the silence happened, they find themselves asking what they are meant to do with everything they have finally understood. Regret alone cannot change the past, but gratitude can transform the future. They realize that the greatest loss was never the absence of communication. It was failing to recognize the extraordinary soul standing beside them while they still had the chance. Yet this realization is not filling them with hopelessness. Instead, it is awakening a quiet determination to never again overlook what truly matters. They understand that people can change, hearts can heal, and wisdom often arrives after seasons of separation. The silence did not erase your connection. It removed every illusion that once prevented them from seeing its true depth. So if this message has found you today, perhaps it is because your story was never meant to be defined by the silence between you. Perhaps that silence was always preparing both hearts for a greater understanding that could only come through time, growth, and reflection. Your soulmate secretly searched for you expecting to find a memory, but instead they found a miracle of transformation. They discovered that you had not been waiting for life to happen. You had been becoming the strongest, wisest, and most peaceful version of yourself. And in witnessing that quiet transformation, they finally understood something that had been hidden from them all along. The greatest chapter of your connection was never the one you shared before the silence. It is the one that begins after both souls have finally learned what that silence was trying to teach them. Because sometimes destiny speaks most clearly not through constant words, but through the powerful changes that only time and the heart can reveal.